You, okay. Is that better? Is that better? We'll get down.
All right, so this time of year, I typically get a lot of questions on social media of my ram who's been super sweet all year has suddenly turned into a monster. Do I need to send him to freezer camp? What do I do? And I am typically the sheep expert, but actually when it comes to ram care, I have pulled in my handsome assistant who is my farm's ram assistant or ram expert, because actually the ram flock is more Kyle's venue and I work the friendly, happy use. So I'm gonna let Kyle be the spokesperson for this particular YouTube episode. This is how one feeds hay to rams in the fall. Very carefully and far away.
Okay, so if people say my well-tempered ram has lost his mind in the September, October, November time frame, I say welcome to rut, because that's what we're in right now.
You spell that?
R-U-T.
Okay.
Rut. This is when deer season is, because this is when all the males are chasing the females. You're gonna have temperamental changes amongst your rams. So with that, there's a couple things you need to keep in mind. Doesn't mean your ram is bad, doesn't mean your ram is mean. Just there's a couple things you need to keep in mind.
So here on Turin, around his eyes, you can see how it's kind of red and purple, and that's from head budding. And Bilbo, our weather, doesn't have any purple on him. It's actually Percy, this little guy right here. Apparently he's challenging the hierarchy. So you see around his horns and his eyes and his nose, he's got some bruising. So he and Turin are going after it, trying to figure out who's going to be the top head honcho.
So our rule is that, especially during rut, I'm the only one that enters the ram pen. Rachel does not enter, and for sure the kids do not need to come in here at all. So my first rule is, especially during rut, like Little John or Friar Tuck said, get you a stout staff, because you need to have something to kind of protect yourself with in case they get feisty. If on your farm the lady of the household is the shepherdess, and that includes the rams, again, get you a stout stick. So now that I have my stout stick, I will enter the ram pen.
Okay.
Okay, so now that you're in the pen with the rams, first rule is especially during rut, do not turn your back on the rams. You don't want to have that unpredictability factor. Even if you know the animal, all animals have the potential to be unpredictable. So don't turn your back on the rams. When you have to do your work, make sure you are keeping them where you can see them and react to them in case they change at all times. As you can see, everybody's a little temperamental right now. So, as you see, they're all eating, so I can kind of violate my rule a little bit. If they're occupied, you're in a much better place. Having an extra set of eyes is very helpful. So as I said, they need to be in this fence because their hormones are raging. And so one of the big keys is during rut, make sure they have plenty of food, whether it's a new pasture, whether it is plenty of hay. You want to make sure they have plenty of forage. The big lesson we learned this year is that our rams have been housed all year long in the pallet pen that you see over here. And that has held them successfully for all year until rut started. And literally they busted out every single day. So one of our takeaways from this year is during rut they have to go behind something they're going to respect more, like electric fence. I don't care if it's polywire, I don't care if it's electric netting, whatever. They need something that's going to give them a pain response to not go forward anymore. So we put them in the electronet and they have stayed put, which is where they're going to be during rut. You don't want a hungry and hormonal ram at your disposal. That's the perfect storm, and that can actually get into a little bit of danger for everybody. So make sure they're well fed, because you want them content. They're not with the ewes, like this group is not with the ewes. You want them content as much as possible. Again, it's okay that you have some kind of relationship with your ram. That's perfectly fine. Again, you watch their mannerisms. If you have an animal that is glaring you down, looks like they're sizing you up, they are. They are seeing if you're biggest on the pecking order now or not, and you don't want that. So if you've got one that's giving you the eye and you know, is locked onto you, you want to do some things to stop that process because it potentially could get ugly. Okay, so if you've got one that's sizing, you think one is sizing you up, they're getting ready to be aggressive, like they're going to start kind of moving towards you in an aggressive manner, not just kind of like walking up to say hi.
Yeah, their neck muscles will bulge a little bit, their front legs will be stiff.
They're starting to puff up, that kind of thing. Number one, the thing you want to do is move. They're going to run, if they charge, they're going to charge in a straight line. You want to move, get out of the way. If you can get out of the pen, get out of the pen. You know, the best thing you can do is get out of their area if at all possible. If that's not possible, then you want to make yourself big. That's why I like a big long stick, because you can make yourself big. This looks a whole lot more intimidating than just me in profile. Make a lot of noise. You're wanting to make yourself as big and intimidating as you possibly can. So that's another thing that can do a distraction to stop them being aggressive. If that's not working for some reason, and this has happened to me a couple times, the nuclear option is you take your stout staff and you wrap them across the bridge of the nose. Not up here on the head, because that's where they butt, and that's what's reinforced with a lot of bone. But if you just kind of bop them on the nose, that gives them a start.
And if the nose doesn't work, I have given them a full crack across the back with the staff too. And that will get their attention.
That will get their attention. You're doing something to throw them off.
Yeah.
And again, we're not advocating you're beating your animals. This is just, if they are getting aggressive, you've got to show them you're dominant, and you've got to bring it down so you don't get hurt. So again, a little tap on the nose, that kind of, you know, jolts them a little bit. If that's not working, you know, that's why this is a stout staff. Do what you need to do to really get their attention to stop.
You're basically trying to just grab their attention, distract them from their determination for chaos and destruction, and then while they're shaking their head going, "What was that?" you get out of the way.
Get out of the pen.
Yeah.
You get out of the way. Okay, another thing that helps, you know, to kind of establish your subservience kind of thing. I mean, you don't want to make your ram friendly in terms of, you do not want to pet them on the front of the head near the eyes. You don't want to pet them on the nose, that kind of stuff. If you do have some engagement with them, petting them under the chin, because that makes them into a more subservient position, like when they're nursing. It's debatable on the ears.
Scratching them on the ears, you mean?
Yeah. But if you...
I don't scratch the boys on the ears.
I would not recommend it. I would just do under the nose. Again, that's the subservient position. But if you just get a hold of one throughout the year, but even during rut time, that again is showing, hey, I can control you. So
yeah, because once sheep are penned down or can't move, then they go, oh, okay, I better stop whatever I was doing.
Once you establish yourself, I've had this happen with one of our very big rams. He always decided he was going to try to be top dog with me, and once I established myself and put him down on his butt, then I didn't have a problem with him after that.
He's like, no one saw that.
I understand this is not possible on every acreage, every homestead, but the more that you can get distance between the rams and that's not being used and the ewes during this time of year, the better. For sight separation, especially sound or smell, the more distance you can get between them, the better. And that may be, you know, several yards, that may be across the other side of the farm, whatever you're able to do. One of the things we did learn really quickly was, with electronet, do not put a paddock of ewes and a paddock of rams right against each other with electronet between them, because that's not
unless you want them all bred and you have no idea who the daddy is.
Exactly. So don't do that. I know a lot of people are wondering, how many rams do you have? Should I have, that kind of stuff? We advocate for having, I mean, obviously you need at least a ram and a wether, or 2 rams, just because that way that ram has a buddy. But then during breeding, you have to do something with that other one. So we like having a flock of rams, if you will. For us, that has kept the politics of ram hierarchy down to a minimum.
Percy is challenging the hierarchy, as you can see by leading everyone. Well, because they're aggressive towards each other, not us.
Right. You know, they have something else to focus on, and that's not on us. So that is, I advocate having more than one ram. Number one, it gives you a bigger breeding pool. Mm-hmm. Number two, it gives you more options, and I have found the rams to be a lot more controllable with several, as opposed to just having, say, a ram and a wether, or two rams, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. This is our ram Sam right there, and we are using him to breed all of our dairy cross girls.
I mean, the rams for us are still useful. Yes, you're having to feed them, but you know, they are still grazing, they are still fertilizing. You know,
ours are making wool.
Ours are making wool,
which you like.
Which I do like. It's very handy in the wintertime. But I mean, the main thing is that you have, I mean, sheep AI is a very, very complex process. Mm-hmm. So you have the ability for your next lambing cycle right there at your disposal. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I get they only have a purpose for, you know, once a year, quote unquote, but they're still moving around, they're still making wool, they're still
improving your pastures.
And like in a couple cases with us, there's meat on hand. Mm-hmm. That's a lot more palatable to
store.
Well, that's a lot more palatable to say we're going to eat one of them than to eat one of the ewes.
Right. The other thing is we've had boys that we think are going to be prime breeding stock, and then they come to maturity and we realize, oh, that's not actually what we want to proliferate on our farm.
Yep. And another thing to be mindful of, this does not come just during a rut, this also comes throughout the year, is that do be mindful, do have a working relationship knowledge of your ram flock, to be mindful of if they do change in personality. Mm-hmm. So one of these rams was a quote-unquote friendly ram the first 2 years we had him. Mm-hmm. And after that, he has started to get a lot more aggressive with the other rams, not with us necessarily, but with the other rams, becoming more of a bully. So he has a future date with the freezer, because we're not putting up with that. I mean, this is a very morality-based system. You act well, or you have a freezer date. So, you know.
And he wasn't aggressive with us. He's just become more difficult to manage.
Yeah. So do be mindful of, yes, animals can change even from a behavior that you know them to be already. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say it's not just during rut. Like during rut, yes, there's going to be some more aggression towards each other or whatnot. Their hormones are really going. But if you have something throughout the year where you notice that ram is just not the way he was before, take note of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it goes beyond springtime where he's just staying in a bad mood, you might want to look at your breeding pool and see if you have other options.
So we also try to intentionally make it this time of year where we're more hands-off with the rams, not trying to worry about hoof trimming and stuff like that. Like, we're trying to leave them to their own devices so they can sort out their hormones on their own. Mm-hmm. So, you know, basically right now for us, it's, in this particular case, give them hay, give them water, and move on, leave them to their own. Or eventually move them to a new pasture, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we're not having to go up and check their fromages as much, or their hooves or anything like that, because we've already done the front end earlier before rut season began. So when the rams went with the girls, they're typically not as aggressive as when they're just off by themselves. That's not always the case, but typically if a ram has enough girls to keep him busy, he won't be as aggressive during rut season, but that's, again, not always the case. There's always exception to every rule. We actually have the rams in a stationary paddock. This is a paddock right off of our house. It's really close to where we can get the ewes. That's our ewe barn there. This is where we have the rams. But we want to have this area improved so that in the springtime after the ewes lamb, they can just come down here and come out here into this area. And I tried reseeding it this spring and it did not work. So We are doing a unconventional soil improvement program using hay and rams and their poo. Hopefully it'll work. Say hi, internet. It's like, what are you doing?